Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Totally Well Show. I'm your host, Joyce Strong. The Totally Well Show is a place where we get curious, ask questions, and explore everything to do with health, wellness, fitness, personal development, helping people, and all the things it takes to help you live a strong, joyous life. My guest today is James Pesch. He is a coach, a life coach, as well as a business coach, and he uses techniques that involve neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, hypnosis, and just a basic understanding of human behavior and the science behind why we do what we do. So you're going to learn a lot in this show. It's just a short show. It's just under half an hour, but you'll learn a lot from James because he really is a master of his technique in getting you to shift your mindset and your belief and your vision in very specific ways that I think might accelerate your growth beyond just traditional talk treatment. So if you've ever been curious about mindset, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, I would highly recommend that you give James a call and see what he's all about. You can reach out to him at jamespesch.com, and it's JAMESPESCH.com. And from there, you'll be able to find him on social media platforms under the same name. And thanks a lot for tuning in to Totally Well Show today. Make sure you go on to Apple Podcasts or to YouTube, wherever you see this show, and give us a thumbs up because we love thumbs up. Visit my website, totalwellcoach.com, for all the other great things that we're doing. And I appreciate your giving me a review because that always helps us be seen by more people. It helps more than you realize. So when you do it, it's a really big gift for me, and I so appreciate it, and I read all my reviews, so please do that. And with that said, on with the show. Welcome, James Pesch. Hi, James. Nice to see you today. Thank you for coming on Totally Well.
Hi, thanks, Joyce. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, I'm really looking forward to this interview because I haven't had anyone exactly like you who with your specialties. And so just at the start, I want to make sure people know how to reach you. It's at your name, jamespesch.com is the best place.
That's right. Yeah. And there's a hidden C in there. So it's James Pesch is Pesch. But a lot of people forget the C because, if you spell it phonetically, nobody would think of that. Yep.
So, and I'm going to put that in the show notes as well. Do you have any other handles or ways people like to that you like to have people reach out to you?
Well, I'm on almost every social media platform: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and my name is the easiest way to find me. It's not a very common name. I think there's less than 10 of us in the United States. So if you find that there's another professor at another university with the same name, and sometimes people get us mixed up because I'm also an adjunct instructor for Tulsa Tech. So sometimes there's that crossover there and miscorrelation.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll make sure I include it in the show notes as well, and that people, if they don't have their questions answered today, because we don't have a super long show, but we just want to give a little sampling of what you do,
Sure.
Which includes neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis and coaching, business and life as well.
Yes.
So,
yes. Yeah.
Tell me about how you help people.
Sure. So I guess it's probably best to define neuro-linguistic programming because it has quite a bit of baggage associated with it, and it kind of depends on who it is, the way that people define it. I basically like to tell people that neuro-linguistic programming is a philosophy and a mindset first, and then out of that philosophy and mindset, there are tools and techniques that get developed. So a lot of times whenever people are practicing NLP, they're talking about the techniques and different things, but they're not actually understanding that that's all predicated by a philosophy and a mindset of wanting to help people. And these presuppositions is what they're called in NLP. You have the basic foundational presuppositions, which is some of them are like the map is not the place, which is basically like no matter what it is that you're representing to yourself, that's not necessarily reality. It's a representation into yourself. And so that's one of the main philosophies that you start with. Other ones are that everybody's doing their best. So you presuppose that people aren't actually trying to get a negative outcome. Even if they are, they're trying to do things the best way they know how, and they may need a better model. And that's kind of what you predicate, that they're trying to do their best. So we give people the benefit of the doubt, basically. But so out of that comes a lot of different techniques, and some of those are called like pacing and leading, which you would also find in hypnosis seminars and things like that. Learning hypnosis, it's basically the linguistic skill of correlating a long chain of words through causal phrases. So if this, then that, if this, then that, and then you just continue down this path of a big string of causal phrases, beginning with things that are occurring that the person agrees with and leading into what you want to occur. So if you begin with, like, as you sit here now listening to the sound of my voice, you begin to notice that you have this sense of peace and joy that starts to well up inside of you. Now, the first few things I said were absolutely true and can't be argued with. The second one is the thing I want to lead you into, is feeling the peace and the joy. Okay. So you string these together, and that's pacing and leading. But then you have things like the swish pattern, where if somebody is behaving in a way that they don't find beneficial, let's say that they're overeating, they're smoking, something like that, then you brain map how they represent that to themselves. So you ask them, like, when you think of yourself doing that, is it in black and white or is it in color? Is it in high definition or is it blurry? Is it like a movie or is it like a picture? Do you see it moving or is it still? Is it close to you or far away from you in your mind? And so these are all visual ways of mapping it out. But then you ask, are there any sounds associated with it? Like, do you hear yourself eating? Do you hear, like, the lighter lighting up whenever you go to smoke that cigarette? Like, when you represent that to yourself, what do you hear? And how intense is that? And then also, how do you feel? Like, are there any feelings that go along with that? Is there a heaviness that you feel whenever you, because a lot of people get down on themselves. So they'll, whenever they're overeating, whenever they're smoking, they will actually have guilt associated with that. And that guilt has a tactile sensation in their body. They'll feel like they're either being pressed down into the floor or even back against the wall. People have experienced a heaviness in their chest and all that. So we map out first the representation that they have of the behavior that they no longer want. And then we map to what they want, the version of them that's on the other side of that. And we map that out as well. And then we'll actually do a swish pattern where we will take the one image and literally swish it over and smash the other.
Yeah.
And we'll do that several times until all that they're left with is the representation and the image that they have of themselves on the other side of this problem. And it has a lot of correlations to cognitive behavioral therapy. And many people believe that CBT was actually, it was generated from the premises of NLP. So I do work for Improving Lives Counseling Services as a hypnotist. And so a lot of times people don't want to do traditional talk therapy. They want to come in and just get on the other side of an issue. So that's it. Basically, I tell them, I am not a therapist. I don't do traditional talk therapy. I don't need to know about your problems. I don't need to know about your past. What we're going to do is connect to the successful outcome that you want. And that's all we're going to be geared towards. Is that my job is not to find out why you are a certain way. My job is to get you on the other side. Okay.
So person has to start with the mapping of where they're at now?
Oh, oftentimes, yes. Okay. And not everybody has to, like, that's just one of the techniques. We also have techniques that are like spinning techniques where you just deal with the kinesthetics. You don't ever even talk about what it looks like in their mind. You only talk about the feelings that they have and they generate whenever they think about this thing. And then you spin them. So you reverse them, like change that feeling in real time, and then change the way that you feel about it. And it's amazing. You can cure is a loaded word. You can help people overcome phobias like that using these types of techniques. Just because we're not really scared of the thing. It's the idea of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really just getting people to map that out and realize that this is a reactive thing that they're doing, but they can change that reaction. You can change the way you react to things. You don't have to. You're not pre-programmed to be afraid of spiders. You've developed this, so we can change that.
It's really fascinating to me. It sounds like this is a very efficient or quick way to make changes compared to traditional talk, or even just like if a person, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not sure, but if like a person creates a vision of what they want their life to be like, it might be very dry and just written words without emotion.
Right.
So how does this help?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And normally in NLP, we start, the first thing you have to do is create a well-formed outcome. So that the first thing you do is determine a goal. What are we going to use NLP to accomplish? What are we going to try to achieve? And in that, I use what's called the PURE model. And I got this from
what model?
PURE, P-U-R-E.
Okay.
PURE. And I actually kind of stole this from my colleague, Mayur Bardola, who's from India, and he does the same thing I do. But the PURE model is, so we start with a P, and acronyms are great for learning a new topic or concept. So we start with a P, and the first thing you want to develop is a positively stated outcome. So and the reason why is because if I say, don't imagine a black cat running across the screen, what happens?
That's all you can think.
That's all you can think of, right? So whenever people come to me and they have a negatively stated outcome, people don't realize that they oftentimes create a negatively stated outcome. Like, I want to stop smoking. Well, everything in that has the thing you want to stop doing in it. Yeah. So it's just like, don't imagine a black cat. You immediately start seeing yourself smoking. Yeah. You're not seeing yourself not smoking. You're seeing yourself smoking. Yeah. So we want to change that, because when those mirror neurons activate, they begin to start to have all of that association that they have with that behavior. And we don't want that. So I'm forced them to create a positively stated outcome. Tell me what you do want, not what you don't want. So we start there. And then the U is that it has to be under your control. So whatever outcome that we're trying to create, it can't be dependent upon anyone else.
Yeah. So that's the ownership piece. That's right.
Yeah. You have to take responsibility for this outcome, because it 100% has to rely on just what you can perform for you. And because that's really all you have control over in this world. So, we make it under your control. And then the R is real. And this is where you were talking about. So for something to be real, you have to be able to see it. You have to be able to hear it. You have to be able to feel it. Those are all attributes that we need for something to be real. If I were to, tell you I drive a Chevy Equinox, that's a real car, but you know nothing about it. To you, it's still not real. Yeah. You have to start knowing, okay, what does it look like? How does it sound? Whenever I sit in it, how does the seats feel? Whenever I start it up, whenever I get to the place I'm going safely, how does that make me feel? So all of this are the things that we do whenever we create it real. So once they've positively stated it, under your control, now tell me what it's going to look like, tell me what it's going to sound like, and tell me how it's going to feel whenever you're on the other side of this issue. And then finally, it's got to be ecologically balanced. And ecologically balanced means that you have to be able to give yourself permission to achieve it. It has to have nothing but positive benefits. There can't be some underlying subconscious belief that some part of this could be negative. You have to believe that this is a positive outcome. And therefore, it also has to not negatively affect anybody else in your life. So whatever this outcome is, you might want to be a millionaire, but if that means you have to work 70, 80 hours a week and you never get to see your kids, is that really a goal that you want? Like, is that really what you want? Maybe not. Maybe something below that's okay. Maybe a 500,000 error is okay. Yeah. And and one of the best examples that I've got is a lady contacted me, wanted to quit smoking, and so we went through this and went positively stated, under your control, realistic, ecologically balanced. And I get there and I say, is there any way that this could be a negative thing for you? And she said, no, I can't think of anything. And I said, okay, what about anybody else in your life? Is this going to be a negative thing for anybody else? And I mean, I saw, like, visibly her head dropped. eyes dropped and she was like, "Oh my gosh, James, I didn't even think about this." Well, what is it? And she said, every single night whenever I get home from work, my husband and I go out on the back patio and we have a cigarette. I have a glass of wine. He has a glass of scotch, and we talk about our day, and it's how we connect. It's our bonding time. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, is there any other way that you could have this bonding time? Is there any other thing that you guys could do together? Or is this a deal breaker? Are we done? Are we at an impasse? Mm-hmm. And she says, I have to talk to my husband. I'm so sorry. I said, hey, no, that is why we go through this process of making sure that this is a well-formed outcome that you can achieve, because I don't want to set you up for failure. And so she contacts me. I don't hear from her. She contacts me 2 weeks later, and she says, I have the best news. I said, what's up? She said, I am down to smoking 1 to 2 cigarettes a day. Yeah. I said, wow. So this is down from a pack and a half a day.
Wow. Yeah.
And I said, well, what'd you do? How'd you do it? And she said, I just told my husband that what I wanted to do. And he said, well, how about we just restrict ourselves to having a smoke just at that time? Yeah. And it almost gives us something to look forward to, and we'll just do it then. And we don't do it any other time. And she was like, that worked for me. That solved my problems. And just like that, she was done. She just had to give herself permission. And she said, now my husband's still smoking 2 packs a day. He didn't stick to his part. But she was happy. And I said, are you happy with that? Is that the result and the outcome that you're happy with? And she said, absolutely. I couldn't be happier. And so that's the thing, is that whenever you do NLP, you can't put your beliefs onto others. So I can't dictate what the good outcome is for her. She has to bring that. Mm-hmm. And that's with all of my clients. It's not my job to tell you what goals to go for. It's my job to make sure that you can achieve those, and I set you up to achieve what you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful, and it's so missed in a lot of practices. I will have somebody come to me with. Recently this happened where somebody came to me with a previous diet plan that somebody, and it was very well done and it made mm-hmm. sense. I understood where the person was coming from. I could tell that they were educated and smart, but it was like, eat this. And it didn't address anything else of mm-hmm. her, what was behind it for her, and it wasn't her plan. And so we went into some of the things that you talk about rather than just making sure this is what she wants. And there were, in fact, as you said, some things in there that were her compromises she was willing to live with to make mm-hmm. sure that everything that her needs were met. And
people so often get hung up on being the best, and they forget that better is better.
Yeah. I like that.
You don't have to get so hung up on everything being optimal and being the best at everything. Better is better.
Yeah.
So striving to be better.
Oh, yes. One of the things I'm confused about is hypnosis and NLP. They're different things.
They are related, very closely related, because Dr. Richard Bandler and John Grinder were the original creators, who they will say that they discovered NLP, not that they created it, but they did so by modeling 3 different therapists. One of them was Milton Erickson, who was he's called the grandfather of the hypnotherapy movement. He was a hypnotherapist, and was probably the most famous hypnotherapist of all time. But they modeled his practice. They modeled Virginia Satir and Fritz Perls. One was a Gestalt therapist, Fritz Perls, and then Virginia Satir was a family therapist. Mm-hmm. And so what they did was they went and they studied their sessions with clients, and they broke down what it is that they're doing, and they basically were able to give you the formula that's used for hypnosis, and that's what's called pacing and leading. But a lot of what it is visualization techniques and modeling different techniques, and so that correlates directly across to hypnosis, which is that hypnosis is basically a deep meditative state, where you just kind of, you start visualizing something, and then you go into that thing, into the subconscious, and make it kind of cognitive. Whereas with NLP, you don't necessarily have to have anybody go into trance or go, actually go to sleep per se. Now some people want that. So I've I work with however people want to work. I work with them. I meet them where they're at.
So is hypnosis like, when I hear people talk about meditation, I've heard
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people talk about that recently, and there's been
Mm-hmm.
lots of podcasts about it and books,
Yep.
apps. And what I'm gathering is that most of our, most of what we know is subconscious, is below
Mm-hmm.
our, and by getting into a meditative state, you're able to access.
Yep.
So is that what hypnosis is doing, changing our brain waves to?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're so closely related. It's not even funny. There's a lot of debate, even by professionals. I mean, I'm in several hypnosis groups online, and there's debate all the time about what it is. What is hypnosis? Is it this? Is it that? By and large, most people agree that it relies predominantly on the placebo effect. That it is very much linked to the beliefs of the individual. So whatever beliefs that they have, or whatever beliefs that you're instilling, that's going to determine the effectiveness, the efficacy of hypnosis.
It seems to me that if I am in a relaxed and meditative state, say I'm out, I like to skate. That's one form of relaxation for me, and play hockey.
Sure.
So if I'm out in the ice and no one's there, and the lights aren't on, it's just the auxiliary lighting. It's not the main lighting, so it's kind of dark, and the sound, all that stuff. It seems like my brain is changing, and things come into my head then or even things like walking in nature, out in the shower, or intently meditating. I'm able to see things I couldn't see before.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's a placebo effect for me. I think it's
So it's no, not necessarily a placebo effect.
Yeah.
This is directly related to the efficacy of hypnosis as a therapy,
okay.
or even as an entertainment practice. If you see a stage hypnotist for entertainment purposes, they're relying predominantly on the beliefs of the individual.
Got it.
To get the behaviors that they get, or that's strongly dependent upon what the person believes.
So when you're using this, I get that people would come to you for smoking, or they'd come to you for weight loss. And a lot of my clients ask me, do you know somebody who does this? And now I'm excited that I do. Can you do this remotely?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, most of my one-on-one clients are in other states.
Oh.
I don't work that much with local people. It's just not as widely utilized here in Oklahoma. But the coasts they love it. I've worked with people in other countries. I love what I do. So the more people that I can help, the merrier. So.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited to be sharing this, because I know for sure a lot of my clients have asked about this, and because I didn't know enough about it, I was more skeptical. But the more I read and learn about and practice with people about trying to help them with nutrition and weight loss and things like that, the more I realize we can't talk about food yet. We've got some other stuff we have to do first.
Yeah.
So that we've got the vision, and we've got all the things you said with that PURE acronym is so great.
Yeah, and there's so many things that you can address with neuro-linguistic programming that people don't even realize. Self-limiting beliefs, negative self-talk, all of this type of stuff. Memorization. I mean, I had a client hired me who had to memorize a 6-page script for her job. It was mandatory. She only had 2 weeks to do it, and she had worked on it for 6 days and only gotten like 2 paragraphs. And within 4 sessions, we had all 6 pages. She just had it down. And and that's utilizing some of the same principles that you utilize in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis. But it's actually called the Loki method. Was a Greek development back in ancient Greece. Was basically creating memory palaces and then attaching different things to your memory palace. So
I've heard of that.
Yeah, your brain already has things memorized that you wouldn't even think of, like walking around your house. You could pretty much walk around your entire house in your mind and know where every single thing is.
Oh my gosh, I do that with places I used to live. It happened to me a couple weeks ago. I literally talked about this with somebody. I was saying I had the weirdest dream last night. I was back in Somerville where I grew up, and I lived there for most of my life. And I was walking through the house, turning faucets on, going in closets. I'm like, why are buildings so?
Yeah, we're spatial creatures, and we've developed a memory that is designed for locations and geography. We're better at that than any other type of information storing because it's necessary for our survival. You know, knowing where the good food is and knowing where the predators are was very, very intricate in our evolution as a species. So
wow, that's fascinating, because I also get very attached to places. Like if I go to a hotel and stay for a couple of days, I hate leaving. I have to say goodbye. I have to like look around. Like it's so weird.
Yeah. So you can utilize what your brain already does, and any long strings of information that you need to memorize, you can actually store them in your memory palace in a home in your mind, and just walk around and pick up the items as you walk through your home.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you could help students when they're trying to study, or like med students, and they have to remember a lot of details. Now, what about with business, the applications in business in general? Because I know you told me that as a human behavior expert, you help in sales, those kinds of things. I'm curious.
So NLP, like I said, it's a philosophy and a mindset, and that's where this comes from, is that you're not just using a set of techniques. You actually have to build rapport with people. And so there are a bunch of different human behavior skills that you can learn, things like mirroring and matching, where you mirror back the same type of hand gestures, you mirror back or parrot back the same exact types of words. So if somebody's a visual thinker, they're going to use a bunch of sight words like, oh, this looks great, that imagery is beautiful, I'm getting a lot of visuals. That's how they're going to communicate. Whereas if they're an auditory person, that sounds amazing to me, I really would like to hear more about that. We could have a chat later. You know, if they're kinesthetic, they're going to be more like, this feels really good. I'm getting, in my gut, it's telling me intuitively that this is really good, and it feels great. Those are kinesthetic people. And so once you start to understand that these are the way that they process information to themselves, if you start to mirror that or parrot that behavior back to them, they will believe that you're like them, and it's just trust building. It's just rapid. And this person's like me. They use my same hand gestures, and it's subconscious. They don't know that that's what's happening. But it is. And so they're building this rapport. They're bonding with you. And so you can utilize this for communication if you're dealing with customer service. If people are taking customer service phone calls and people are angry, one of the best ways is to utilize some of these models to break through that anger and get to the real root of the problem and help the person. So a lot of places want me to come in and do that for their HR departments and different things like that. And then sales. This works for sales training, helping people to identify people's personal emotional needs, bonding with them, mirroring and matching, and then identifying their language patterns and utilizing their language patterns to help identify whether or not your product fits their needs.
That's really interesting. Do you know, have you followed Chris Voss at all? He wrote Never Split the Difference. He's a former FBI hostage negotiator.
Oh, I do. I know this name, though. Yes, I have heard it. Yeah. A lot of people say a lot of what you're talking about, this guy does. Yeah, so.
Yeah, you're like him. You're the way, because he's now, I think his organization's called Black Swan or something, but he does a lot of business stuff now using these same techniques.
Yep.
And he's like, this is all science. This is all the way if you're human, this is how you work, how your brain works and your system works. So
yeah, and we even do like emotional intelligence training. So it's called in NLP, it's called sensory acuity, being able to identify micro expressions, being able to identify whenever eye patterns. If somebody's looking up like this, they're probably thinking visually. If they're looking back and forth toward their ears, they're probably processing information auditorily. If they're looking down, they're probably checking their feelings. And then there are those of us who have an internal dialogue, and that's off to the side. We're kind of having a conversation with ourselves internally. And Steven Pinker, the doctor of psychology at Harvard, calls this mental ease. You know, it's the way we process mental ease. Like we
Oh,
all have a language that we process information to ourselves, and it consists of all these sensory modalities. So visuals, sight, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, feelings, and our brain can't distinguish the difference between a tactile sensation, like if I rub my hand on a smooth surface,
yeah.
that is as real to my brain as when I feel happy. And that's indistinguishable. My brain thinks that those are both real.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And it's, I can see so much better now why some of my inclinations to go in this direction have been, and different people use different ways to explain what they're doing or why it works. Even some very woo stuff I call woo.
Yeah. Woo. That woo stuff.
But but I'm more like I want to know why it works. And
I'm the same way. Yeah. I don't like woo stuff. I like being able to really put a finger on stuff. One of the reasons why I do this and I love to educate people about this subject is because it is so misunderstood and there is so much woo associated with it. These are things you can break down and you can actually look at observational empirical data and demonstrate it in real time. And everybody just gets it. They're like, oh man, like when I'm teaching workshops and I'll say, I'll write the word duck on the whiteboard. And then I'll say, what popped into your head when I said the word duck, or when you saw the word duck? And I'll go around the room and every single person in the room has something different pop into their heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've had everything from like, I saw the Geico duck, or not is it Aflac? I saw the Aflac duck.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, oh, I saw this little yellow toy that I had in the bathtub when I was a kid. I had one lady say, I saw my ex-husband because he used to go duck hunting.
Now, see, I would say duck boat because I'm in Boston and they have duck boat.
Okay. Yeah. See? And so whenever I start mapping this out and I demonstrate around the room, like we all think we speak the same language.
Yeah.
But we don't.
No.
And whenever we represent these concepts and stuff to ourselves, whatever it is that's going on in your brain is probably completely different than what's going on in mine. Mm-hmm. So I can give people tools to map that out and identify what is it that you're actually seeing? What is it that you're hearing? What is it that you're feeling? Let's map it out. Let's talk about it in a way that's concise, that adds texture and detail to these representations that are right now abstract in the mind.
Yeah. Wow. That's really awesome. I could talk to you all day. I'm so grateful, but we're just about out of time. So
yeah, I understand. No, it's been great.
It goes so fast. This has really been helpful to me personally. And I know to my listeners, and I hope that we can collaborate again because you're great. You really are an expert communicator and I can tell how much you love it. Just looking at your face, you look so happy talking about it.
I do love this subject. It was my obsession for a few years. And so now being able to actually articulate what this stuff is so nice, because there was a time whenever I didn't know what it was I was seeing. I didn't know what it was but I knew I was onto something. So it's been nice to be able to actually articulate these concepts.
Well, I'm grateful for your time today and for sharing. And I
Thanks, Joyce.
will speak to you soon.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.